You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Bernie's on the road tomorrow, so today we're having a special Thursday edition of Brunch with Bernie. Get your calls ready at 866-987-THOM. Senator Sanders, greetings.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you. I heard from your office that you may have to leave for a vote at some point during this hour.
The vote just took place, so we're in pretty good shape.
Oh, great. Okay, super. So what's going on? What's on your mind? Tell us about the vote. Tell us what are the issues on your part.
Well, we have just, with this vote, I think, ended the session before the August break. So I think it's a good time to kind of recapitulate in terms of what's been going on in Congress and in the country in the last few months, and what are the issues that we're going to have to focus on when we return in September. And I think the major issue, Tom, is overwhelmingly the state of the economy. Deficit, to my mind, is an important issue. We have cut the deficit in half from $1.4 trillion a year down to less than $700 billion. We have more to do, but we have made some significant gains in dealing with the deficit. But the crisis that remains in this country now is very, very high unemployment. While we have, of course, made progress in the last 5 years since the Wall Street fiasco and losing 700,000 jobs a month, I want everybody to understand that real unemployment today, not the official unemployment, but real unemployment, including those who have given up looking for work, and those people who are working part-time, remains at over 14%. Youth unemployment over 20%. Black youth unemployment over 40%. So anybody who thinks that we are in a good place in terms of employment is absolutely wrong. But it's not just the large numbers of people who are unemployed. The other issue that we should be focusing on, Tom, is the kind of income that people are receiving. A job is not necessarily a job, and what we have seen in recent years is the loss of decent-paying jobs and the replacement of jobs that are, by and large, low-wage jobs. Most of the new jobs that are being created are low-wage jobs. So if you take somebody who, say, just with a high school degree, 30, 40 years ago, that person could go out, get a job in a factory. If he or she had a union behind them, you could actually make a living wage. Those days are gone, and the jobs now are open that are open for those folks. Walmart, Burger King, McDonald's, Popeye, etc. Jobs that pay $7.25, $8, $9 an hour, not a living wage. So the first issue is, how do we create the millions of jobs that we desperately need? Second issue is, how do we raise wages in America? Some of the listeners may have noticed that around the country, in a number of cities, workers, including a lot of young workers, are taking a one-day strike. They're walking off their jobs at fast food restaurants. And what they are saying loudly and clearly is they cannot make it on $7.25 or $8 an hour, which is what many of them are being paid. And I really salute the courage of those young workers to stand up not only for themselves, but for millions and millions of other low-wage workers. So one of the issues that we are working on that I hope to see come to the floor as soon as possible is a minimum wage bill that will raise the minimum wage to at least $10.10 an hour. The truth of the matter is that today, in terms of real dollars, in terms of purchasing power, minimum wage is paying about 30% less than it paid in 1968. So the minimum wage has not kept pace with inflation. We have more and more people working at low-wage jobs. If we raise the minimum wage to, say, $10 an hour, it will mean a wage increase for some 30 million workers. That is not just those folks who are making $7.25 an hour. They'll go up, obviously, but people who are making $8 or $9 an hour will also be bumped up. And despite the mythology out there, most of the folks earning these low wages are not kids. They're working people trying desperately to keep their families together on horrendously low wages. Just do the arithmetic: $7.25, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, you're making $15,000. and nobody can live on $15,000. So raising the minimum wage is an issue that is of significant is of great significance to this country, and I hope we'll all stand with those low-wage workers and fight to do that. The other day, Tom, I had a press conference with John Conyers, Keith Ellison in the House, talking about single payer. And right now, I think everybody is focused on the implementation of Obamacare, and I voted for that. I think it has some very good features in it. But at the end of the day, we've got to go beyond Obamacare. What we have got to establish as a principle in the United States of America, that health care is a right, R-I-G-H-T, for every man, woman, and child in this country. After Obamacare, depending on how many states end up coming into the program, we will still have many, many millions of Americans with no health insurance. You'll have many more who have high deductibles and high co-payments. So Obamacare may be a step forward, but we have got to move toward a single-payer health care system which guarantees health care to all, and that's what the press conference was about. The advantages of single-payer is that it eliminates a lot of the administrative waste in the current system. Medicare, which is a single-payer system by and large, is administered far more cost-effectively, much less administrative costs than private insurance programs. So what we have to do is, A, guarantee health care to all, do it in a cost-effective way, and the way to do that is through a single-payer system, get rid of the private insurance companies whose only function in life is to make as much money as they possibly can. We got to lower the cost of prescription drugs, which in America for brand-name drugs are now the most expensive in the world, and that is an issue that has got to remain on the agenda. Let me mention some interesting news, and I think good news. Earlier in the week, I was at an event with the Veterans Administration. I'm chair of the Senate Veterans Committee. Mm-hmm. And they had a wonderful display of new technology which VA healthcare is doing. VA healthcare is the largest integrated healthcare system in the United States of America. It provides healthcare today to some 6 million veterans in this country. And by and large, it has its share of problems, but by and large, it does a pretty good job. And most of the veterans that I speak to in Vermont and around the country are pretty happy with the care that they're getting. What this meeting was about, that VA held, was to display some of their new technology in telehealth. And telehealth is a radical new concept that I think is going to have profound changes in healthcare throughout the country. What it means for a start, that if you're living in a rural area, you can get on the phone and talk to get on a teleconference and speak to your psychologist, your psychiatrist, and you can do it in some cases in the comfort of your home, or maybe you're going to go to what's called a primary health care facility in your town rather than having to travel 100 or 150 miles to get to your appointment. What we're seeing is also in terms of telehealth, the ability of specialists at the VA to actually diagnose problems when people have cameras in their homes. So imagine having the camera on your foot looking at a problem being diagnosed by a doctor 1,000 miles away. It saves money. It provides increased access to the veterans and better health care. So very impressive what the VA is doing there. One of the issues that I am working on is chairman of the VA, and we could talk about that in a moment.
Okay, we'll pick it up on the other side. We're talking with Senator Bernie Sanders. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, our national town hall meeting with Senator Sanders. A day early today because Bernie's traveling tomorrow. So give us a shout. We'll put you on with the senator right after this. It's 15 minutes past the hour. And don't forget, Bernie's website is sanders.senate.gov.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And you can also download the free Thom Hartmann app over at the App Store. Welcome back. And Bernie, you're still here?
Yeah, let me just complete that
Sure.
one thought on the
Go
VA
for it.
healthcare system. And one of the other areas that we're working on, and the VA is already beginning to do some good work on this, is kind of merging traditional Western medicine with some forms of Eastern medicine. And that is what many of the VA hospitals are finding, is that a lot of soldiers dealing with chronic pain and headaches are responding well to acupuncture and other forms of what we call complementary medicine. So there's some interesting work being done there as well.
That's great
But
stuff.
let's go to the phones.
Yeah, okay. Let's see here. Nick, who's actually watching on your website at sanders.senate.gov. Hey, Nick, in Suncook, New Hampshire, you are on the air with Bernie.
How's it going, sir? Mr. Sanders, let me start out by saying that I don't have a huge amount of trust in most people in elected office these days, but I've found you to be one of the most rational and objective progressive voices. So, thank you for speaking to issues like single payer. My question is specifically, more specifically about the NSA spying debate that's been going on, such as with the Amash Amendment, but also in the broader context of what many call, developing police state. But I was curious, especially as one who's sort of outside, like, the mainstream partisan, ideological fights, if you see these developments in any way sort of altering the dynamics and the way people see politics. It used to be just strictly left, right, blue and red, but now you've got libertarian conservatives and ardent civil libertarian liberals siding up on the same side of this issue.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, good question, Nick, and and your point is well taken. What we're seeing on this is honest, the honest conservative. It's not my philosophy, but the honest conservative says, I don't like big government. I don't think the government should be involved in healthcare, and I don't think the government should be involved in education. But if you're consistent with that view and you're opposed to big government, you know what? The government should not be collecting every data, not filing every bloody phone call that you make. The government should not be intruding in people's personal lives. That should be a right-wing, conservative, libertarian point of view. And happily, some of those guys are being consistent and honest. And you saw that in the House, where some of the folks on the left came together with some of the folks on the right to get a heck of a lot of votes in opposition to this NSA program. So I think on the fundamental economic issues, there is a world of divide. But on some of these civil libertarian issues, such as the role of the NSA in collecting data on every phone call made in America, there is a coming together. And I'll hope that happens in the Senate as well. And let me just say this, Nick. In my view, in the area that I will be focusing on, and we've introduced legislation to do that, here's what the issue is. What the president and what the government in general and the NSA is saying, look, we need all of this information. What some of us are saying is we recognize that terrorism is a serious issue. And we should not forget for one moment there are folks out there planning and plotting every day how to do us harm. But you can do it in a much more selective way by giving the agencies the authority to go after those people we believe are involved in terrorism, and not by having files on every single American.
Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls. More right after this, 20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour a day early. It's Bernie's traveling on Friday, so today is Thursday, and Bernie is taking your calls right now. And Bernie, you're here with us?
I am right here.
Okay. James in Belvedere, Illinois. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, hi, Senator Sanders. I think you're great. You too, Tom. I think we need a initiative for jobs through a Buy American program that returns tax dollars back to people that are still making earned income. They're not retired, they're not disabled, they're still, so it's paid for. $2,000, $3,000 they can tie with their own savings, tie it with a bank loan, for products that are manufactured, produced, and sold retail in this country. It brings appreciable value back to their property, so they're raising real equity levels of their home to spend in other sectors of the economy, and they're creating jobs for people that don't even have homes.
Well, James, you touch on a major issue, and there are different ways to tackle the problem. I think the issue that James is referring to is the fact that fewer and fewer of the products that we purchase are manufactured in the United States of America. And in fact, we have lost some 60,000 factories in the last 10 years in this country and millions of decent paying jobs. And how you turn that around, I think there are various ways of going at it. James has suggested one way. What I believe very strongly is that we have got to change our trade policies, and we talk about this almost every week. That's NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China. We have another trade agreement coming up with the Pacific Rim. We have a trade agreement coming up with Europe. All of these trade agreements were pushed by corporate America, and their goal was very clear. It was to be able to hire workers in China and other low-wage countries at a fraction of the wages they pay them in the United States, not have to deal with unions, not have to deal with environmental protection. And the corporations have gotten what they wanted. So what you're seeing in virtually every major corporation in America, from General Electric on down, is major downsizing in terms of American workers and significant increases in their workforce abroad. So they are creating jobs. Unfortunately, they're jobs in China and Mexico and all over the world, but not in the United States of America. And the epitome of that philosophy was reflected in a statement by the former CEO of General Electric, Jack Welch. Tom, you maybe remembered what he said. He said, if I had my druthers, I would build our manufacturing plants on barges. Remember him saying that?
Yep.
And by that he meant he would move his manufacturing plants to those parts of the world where wages were the cheapest. Well, can't quite put them on barges yet, but that's what they are doing. And it has been a disaster for the American working class. It is one of the reasons why we have seen the middle class in this country disappear, why many people are working for lower and lower wages, and why the new jobs that are out there are at Walmart's and Burger King rather than earning a decent living working in a factory. So James put his finger on a major issues. There are different ways to tackle them. I would start with the demand that we change our trade policies and force corporate America to start investing in this country and not just in China.
Charles in Opelika, Florida. You're on the air, Senator Sanders.
Well, my pleasure speaking to you today, Senator Sanders. And how you doing, Tom?
Great.
Okay, wonderful. I think I haven't heard it yet with these calls so far, but to me the biggest elephant in the room was I guess a major factor on economic debt, our education policy, our medical care that we give is the immigration issue. If we don't tackle that, that is going to bring this country down even worse. That is to me, that is the number one issue that has to be addressed. Only because if you have someone here that's not legal here working and is working for less wages, if that person has been here, and been taken away from as far as paying taxes back, and as far as just taking away a job, if that person was able to get a legal status, then that person will want a regular wage like everyone else, and that would also open up the playing field for people that have been locked out only because they can't compete at $5 or $6 an hour for something that they would do for $10 or $12 an hour.
Good. I think Charles, thank you very much, and you make an important point. And let me just very briefly give you my views on the immigration bill that was passed in the Senate, I guess a couple of months ago now, and we will see what ends up happening in the House. I had mixed feelings about the immigration bill. I think there were some features of it that were very positive, and I think Charles identified one of them. Right now in this country, you have millions of undocumented workers who are being exploited. Many of them are working for below minimum wage. They have no rights. They're unable to stand up for their rights. They're not paying taxes. They're not getting Social Security. They're getting ripped off. And the immigration bill would address that important issue. The immigration bill included the DREAM Act, very important for young people born in America, to make sure that they get their rights. My concern, and there were some very good provisions regarding agriculture, dealing with the need for some legal status for many of our agricultural workers. The concern that I had for the bill was that, in fact, it was supported by the big corporations without exception and the big high-tech companies, because it really will be a green light for them, just an open door for them to bring in huge numbers, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of entry-level workers from abroad, from countries around the world, as well as high-tech workers. And I think that will displace American workers who should be having those jobs. So I was kind of ambivalent about this bill. There were some good things in it, some bad things in it. We managed to get a provision in there, an amendment, which will create 400,000 jobs for young people, and that was one of the reasons I ended up voting yes on it.
It's our Brunch with Bernie hour this week, a day early. Bernie's going to be traveling tomorrow on Friday, so Bernie's with us. He's taking your calls right now, today, here on Thursday, on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. We'll be back with more of Senator Sanders.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And don't forget Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. You can sign up for his newsletter. There's a pile of great news there, actually. It's a great news source. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Thursday, but we're doing a special edition of Brunch with Bernie. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls because he's going to be traveling tomorrow. Bernie, you're still with us?
I am right here, Tom.
Okay. Sherman in Inglewood, California is on the line. Sherman, you're on the air with Senator Sanders. Sherman?
Yes.
Oh, hang on just a second, Sherman. I just pushed the button, and I think it's going to drop you. If it does, my apologies. I let go. Sir. Okay. I was able to successfully let go of it. Sherman, you're on the air with Senator Sanders. Sherman?
Well, thank you for receiving my call, and let me commend you on your outstanding program.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Please pick one.
Wouldn't it be a good idea to have a certain proportion of the board of directors of large corporations selected by the workers?
The answer is, Sherman, it would be a wonderful idea. Probably not going to happen unless we develop the kind of mass political movement that we need in order to begin to hold some of these very large corporations accountable. So the answer is yes, that would be a good idea. What would also be a good idea, and we're making some progress in Vermont in this, and I think in Ohio, a few other states, is moving more to worker ownership of businesses. What you have in America is a lot of individuals who have started businesses. They're getting old, they're retiring. They wouldn't mind leaving it to workers, and we're trying to figure out a way to make that, from a tax point of view, easier. But the idea of having worker cooperatives would be a great thing for this country. But bottom line, how we could have, as Germany does, by the way, if my memory is correct,
yes,
having workers on corporate boards so that employees have some say about decision-making certainly would be a good step forward in making us a more democratic nation.
George in Las Vegas, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Senator, how you doing?
Good.
What's the sense of the feel that you get in the House and the Senate, or especially in the House, in what direction the country's going to go as far as the elections in 2014? Because apparently the Republicans have already bagged it in; they're just not going to do anything. And then Barack Obama, I guess he's forgotten the fact that he's got the power of the veto, but. What direction do you think the country's going to go? Do you think they're going to go back to the center and maybe bring some more Democrats back in, or some more moderates? Or are we going to go further and further out to the different zones, the Tea Party to the right and obviously the ultra-liberals to the left? And I'll take my answer off the line.
Well, thanks for the question, George. And nobody knows the answer to that, but if you want, to give you my speculation. And a lot of it really has to do with the role that the president is prepared to play and that Democrats are prepared to play. Because this is what I think, George. I think if you look at where our right-wing Republican friends stand, where the people who run the House of Representatives stand, and some of my colleagues here in the Senate, this is what they believe in. They believe that Social Security should be cut or privatized. They believe that Medicare as we know it should be ended, despite the fact that it is a very successful program, voucherized. They believe in massive cuts in Medicaid, in food stamps, in federal aid to education. The vast majority of Republicans in the House do not believe that global warming is real, let alone want to see us do anything about transforming our energy system. In terms of the minimum wage, I mentioned earlier that I believe it's very important that we raise the minimum wage to at least $10 an hour to address the crisis that so many of our low-wage workers are facing. And here's the truth, which many people don't really know, is that most Republicans now, didn't used to be the case, now not only feel that we should not raise the minimum wage, many of them believe that we should abolish the concept of the minimum wage, that that's too much government intrusion into the economy. In other words, if you're living in a high unemployment area and I want to hire you at $3 or $4 an hour and you're prepared to work at that, that's what freedom is about. Your freedom to work for $3 an hour. Now, all of these ideas that I've just expounded, that the Republicans believe in, they reflect what maybe 15, 20% of the American people believe in. In other words, the Republicans are way, way, way out of touch with where America is. And that's just not my view. That's what every single poll says. The polls say the American people want to ask the wealthy to pay their fair share of taxes. They want to protect Social Security. The Republicans want to lower taxes for the rich and cut Social Security. The Republicans want to increase military spending. Most Americans want to cut military spending. On and on it goes. They're way out of touch. So if the Democrats are prepared to confront the Republicans, if the President of the United States is prepared in a forceful way to stand up to the Republicans, make the contrast clear, and lay out a progressive agenda of raising the minimum wage, creating jobs, asking the wealthy to pay their fair share of taxes, and let the Republicans refuse to do that, if that is what unfolds, you know what? I think the Democrats stand a decent chance to regain the House and add to their numbers here in the Senate. But if the American people don't see the difference and they end up saying, well, you know, Democrats are pretty bad and the Republicans are maybe worse, but no one's going to do anything. I hate government. They're all crooks. If that's what ends up filtering down to the average American, who knows what will happen on Election Day. But I think under that scenario, it is likely the Republicans retain control over the House and maybe, possibly, gain control over the Senate.
Mark in San Francisco. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, gentlemen. I have a question. Is there a Democrat or an independent that will stand up against the Republicans on their policies that caused us to have food stamps, to have people unemployed and people on disability because of their wars? They created this situation. I'm tired of them blaming everybody's lazy, everybody wants to be on disability when they caused all this. Is there anybody that'll stand up to them?
Well, Mark, I think some of us are doing that, and some of us have done that. Some of us have made the point that the Wall Street crash was caused by the greed and recklessness and illegal behavior on Wall Street, and some of us think we should break up these huge financial institutions on Wall Street that have so much wealth and so much power. And some of us think that we have got to end this policy of deregulation and bring back Glass-Steagall. And I would go further by breaking up the banks and real reform to the feds. And some of us think that we should end these disastrous trade policies, which have cost us so many jobs. And in terms of the deficit, what is, I think, maybe Mark referring to is the deficit was caused by two wars that were not paid for, by huge tax breaks to the wealthy. Those are the substantial reasons that we were in a deficit situation. And to get out of that situation, you don't cut programs for working, for people who are hanging in economically, just hanging on by their toenails. What we have to do is create jobs, and the way to do that is to ask the 1 out of 4 major corporations that's not paying a nickel in taxes to start paying their fair share of taxes, to end these huge tax loopholes that exist by companies stashing their money in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens. So to answer your question, Mark, I'm not going to tell you most members are prepared to stand up to the big money interests, but some of us are.
Ashes in Palatine, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello. I had a question. Do you know if every high school in America is teaching civics classes to all the juniors and seniors in high school? Because because if I think they did that, every student will get interested in how politics works and how it affects their lives.
Ashes, that is an excellent, you make a very, very good point, that it's not just whether they're teaching civics in high school, the question of whether they're teaching civics, what we used to call civics, in elementary school. And the answer is they're not. And I think we have seen less and less of that in recent years. And the result of that is that many, many young people have not a clue about what democracy is about and how their government works. Interestingly enough, people who go through the immigration process have to learn a lot about the American government, and they're tested on it. But kids who grow up in this country often do not even have an understanding of the basic structure of government, the division of powers in the United States, how people get elected. And I think we have got to place a lot more emphasis on that within our educational system.
Mike in Vail, Arizona. Mike, we just have a minute. A quick one, please.
You bet. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. 2 champions, both you and Tom, Bernie. Thank you so much. And way to go, San Francisco gentleman, a couple calls ago. My question is, something as obvious as the Medicare Prescription Drug Act and the charging of full retail pricing in order to expand the profits for the pharmaceutical industry. Why is it so difficult to tweak or fix that one singular impactful issue?
Okay. Mike, great question. Tom, how are we doing on time?
I think we got about 15 seconds. So
all right, I'll start the answer, Mike, and I'll pick it up after the break. The simple answer to your question is the power of the pharmaceutical industry over both the Democratic and Republican parties. Pharmaceutical industry is one of the most powerful lobbies in Washington. They end up charging us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And they manage to have great influence in the Affordable Care Act and on many other pieces of legislation.
Okay, Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls in our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program on Thursday, or a day early. It is 15 minutes before the hour. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Bernie.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And don't forget, Bernie's website is sanders.senate.gov, G-O-V. Welcome back. Bernie, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, let me pick up again on sure. Mike's good question about the drugs company. So the first point, Mike, is the pharmaceutical industry is enormously powerful and effective on both political parties and in the White House. A number of years ago, when I was in the House, I was the first member of Congress to take people over the Canadian border to buy prescription drugs, in some cases for 1/10 the price that they were paying in the United States. And that's true all over the world where prices are a lot lower. What Mike was asking specifically is about Medicare Part D and why it is that we do not negotiate prices with the pharmaceutical industry, as, by the way, does the Veterans Administration. And the answer, again, is just the power of the pharma industry. Now, I wanted to pick up on a point, though. Mike reminded me of something, and that is, we talk about prescription drugs and sometimes people going into Canada to buy their drugs. There's another phenomenon, interestingly enough, Mike, I'm going to do a hearing on this in September, and that is dental care. I think I have mentioned on this show that dental care is a huge crisis in this country that we don't talk about a whole lot. One of the interesting things is that while some people head north into Canada to get their prescription drugs, they also head south into Mexico to get their dental care. Did you know that?
Wow. I've heard that.
Yeah, there are, in fact, I think tours, there are agencies that get people into areas of Mexico where you have a whole lot of dentists who are doing major dental work for a fraction of the cost that people have to pay in the United States. So in future, if people want to write to me, to my website, about their dental issues and why dental costs are so high and the lack of availability of dentists who are just, doing basic dentistry, I'd love to hear from you. We're going to do a hearing on the dental crisis in America and the fact that so many people just don't get to a dentist when they need to, and so many people just cannot afford the high price of dental care.
Okay. We have, how much time do we have, Shannon? Minute and a half. Okay. Joanne, I think you wanted to share a story with Bernie. Just a quick one. We have just a minute and a half.
Thank you so much, both of you. I wanted to share a story that I read in the Ithaca Times on May 22nd. It was about a specific case of two American soldiers, the Johnsons. One is Donna Johnson, who was deployed on a second tour to Afghanistan. And before that, she was married to her wife in our nation's capital. And two American soldiers are married, and one gets killed, and the other is denied widow and is still serving in the state of North Carolina at Fort Bragg. And even after DOMA's ruling, Senator Sanders, she will still be denied her rightful Social Security.
Joanne, I have some good news for you with regard to that issue. As chairman of the VA committee, we just passed a legislation a week ago in the committee that addresses that very issue, that will provide gay couples with the same benefits that heterosexual couples have. So I think we have made a step forward in that area.
That is marvelous. Joanne, thank you for the call, and Bernie, thank you for the answer. We'll be right back. It is 10 minutes before the hour. And here on the Thom Hartmann Program, on Thursday, we're taking calls for Bernie a day early. We'll be right back. 10 minutes before the hour, talk media for the rest of us here at the Thom Hartmann Program, and it's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders, a day early here on Thursday, taking your calls. Bruce in Monroe, North Carolina, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you today?
Good.
The question that I put forward is, Senator Sanders, how can the minimum wage raise work? I don't believe it can. I just want to tell you why before I take your answers, how you think it can. Is because when minimum wage was $5.15, gasoline was around $1.50, $1.60. They raised minimum wage to $7-something. Now gasoline is $3 because it has no control over the gasoline market and many other things. So if we raise minimum wage to $10, then the gas company and stuff, they're just going to raise gas to negate that, and you're talking about approximately $100 more a week in people's pocket. Average gas tank on a small car is 12, 13 gallons. You raise it $2, that's $25 a week that's going out right there. Then all the stores raise their prices and everything. So all of a sudden you might be putting an extra $10 or $15 in your pocket if you raise minimum wage because it's always gone up. And the reason why I say that with our structure, and I'll make this point and then I'll go off, look at the case just today with Castro, and they're going to give him life imprisonment plus 1,000 years. Well, prison is supposed to be for rehabilitation. Well, we're not going to rehab him. So what we're saying is that for the next maybe 30 years, we're going to pay all of his expenses to give him a place to live. Where does that money come from? The taxpayers, from us. Again, they're taking money from us. The government is constantly taking money. The minimum wage is to me, is a ploy because every time you raise it, the price of everything in Walmart, Walgreens, Sears, everywhere you go.
Okay, Bruce, I think you made your point. Let's hear Bernie's response, please.
Thank you, Bruce. You and I have a disagreement on our analysis. I'm not quite sure what the connection is between raising the minimum wage and the outrageous prices that we pay for gas, let me say a little word. Just reiterate what I said earlier in the program. We have today millions of workers who are working for starvation wages. They work at companies like Walmart's, which are owned by the Walton family. Walmart is the wealthiest family in America, and you got a whole lot of folks who are working for Walmart who make very low wages, who then get Medicaid, they get housing assistance, they get food stamps, precisely because the wealthiest family in the country is not paying them a living wage. That may make sense to you, Bruce. It does not make sense to me. Now, in terms of gas prices, and there's no correlation between raising the minimum wage and gas prices, but gas prices are very, very high today, because there is no control. ExxonMobil and these other large oil companies who are enormously profitable can basically charge anything they want. When we were going to elementary school and high school, we were told there was a law called supply and demand. The more supply, less demand, prices go down. Well, you know what? There's a lot of supply out there. Demand has gone down and prices have gone up. They've gone up. And the reason that oil prices are so high has a lot to do with Wall Street speculation on the oil futures market, et cetera, et cetera. But to answer Bruce's concern, in my view, we should not be having millions of people working for starvation wages. We should raise the minimum wage. Inflation today is reasonably low. Corporate profits are extraordinarily high, and we've got to give a break to the average worker. So I am strongly supportive of raising the minimum wage.
Deborah in Aurora, Virginia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders. My question is about the buyout of family practice physicians in my area by a corporation, and also a well-known state hospital here in my area was recently bought by a corporation. What do you think of that? And also, one more thing. I was shocked to see what was on my history. There are things that are not true. It's very misleading, and that's forever on a computer in Georgia. So be careful what you tell doctors, because you never know what they'll put down that is there forever. That's my question.
Well, Deborah, obviously I'm not going to comment on what's on your medical record, but I share the concern that you have, is that we're seeing a significant growth in corporate medicine. And I'm not a fan of corporate medicine. I believe that at the end of the day, what we want is a healthcare system in this country run on a nonprofit basis, providing high-quality, cost-effective care to our people with a much greater emphasis on disease prevention and primary care than we currently have. But the idea that we have people making billions and billions and billions of dollars off of human sickness, to me, is very, very wrong.
Bernie, we just have 2 minutes left. I noticed Jenny has a question. Instead of putting her on, I'll just ask you. I think it's fairly straightforward. Asking, is lying to Congress illegal regarding some of the things that have been told to Congress by some of the NSA contractors and whatnot? And then, anything else?
If you're under oath, it surely is illegal. That's called perjury, and that's a serious
And your thoughts for the end of the week?
Well, my thoughts for the end of the week is that we are in a strange moment in American history. And I know that a lot of folks out there, especially progressives, are kind of demoralized. They see the severity of the problems facing our country in terms of the economy, in terms of global warming, many other issues out there, and they don't see Congress moving. And what I would just urge those people to understand is the struggle for justice, the struggle for basic human rights is an ongoing struggle. We're honoring now the 50th anniversary of the great speech by Martin Luther King Jr. In Washington, the I Have a Dream speech. King and his friends and those who went before him were fighting for civil rights for decades, and women were fighting for women's rights, and gay rights people were fighting for very, very, very long periods of time. And if, in fact, we are legitimately concerned about the crises facing this country, now is not the time to throw up our hands in despair. Now is the time to say, I'm going to get even more involved. I'm going to speak to my friends and my neighbors. I'm going to hold meetings. I'm going to hold elected officials accountable. What we're fighting for is too important to turn our backs on. So with that, I hope everybody has a very nice week.
Senator Sanders, thank you so much for being with us.